nation's capital of Washington, D.C., have returned to Guam and have tested positive for COVID-19. And so we'll bring on Mark Scott from the Guard to kind of just bring us up to speed. Mark, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us on short notice. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning, Chris, Bree. Hey, Jason and Joe, sir. Good morning. Off a day. Yeah, no problem. We're here for you guys.
So what's going on? There's 2 Guards members that went to the inauguration. When did they return?
So they returned last week, Wednesday, and they had the negative PCR test within 72 hours of departure. Well, once they came home, one of our members was symptomatic, tested positive. This was Saturday, and then our second one was on Monday. So we did things by the book. We got the negative PCR test. We got the approval from public health to be deemed critical service workers. They had the court order to do restriction of movement, home quarantine, all of that. But, you know, it turns out that it looks like the book could use some improvements. So that's where we're going from here. I think Chris mentioned it. Oh, go ahead, Bree.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like what Chris mentioned earlier, that some of the changes we're looking at is adding some more requirements, such as, for example, folks going off island must have been vaccinated first, more restrictions on the quarantine process and things like that. Maybe a tighter look at qualifies for critical service workers. So, you know, it's a work in progress, Bree. I think you guys all know by now that we are interested as much as anyone in the safety of our community. And, you know, to have gone through this is definitely a risk that we have to try to work better at mitigating next time.
Right. I mean, but, you know, this isn't the first time we heard about military members that came to Guam and they were positive, because Operation Sea Dragon, it just concluded, I want to say last week or 2 weeks ago, but there were strict protocols that the Department of Defense put in place for all the military members that were going to be deployed here for the training exercise. And part of that was the PCR test negative before coming onto Guam, the quarantine prior to coming on Guam. And when they got here, some of them were positive. So, you know, this isn't an isolated type of situation with military personnel. But with the 2, did all of the Guards members that were deployed, did they all come back at the same time on the same flight?
Yes.
How many?
It was in the 30s, like around 35, 38.
Have all 35, 38 now been tested since the 2 positives?
So there's a window of time in between tests, right? And then the one they recently took was that one before boarding the flight, which of course is all negative. And they're due for another one here soon. So being that they are on orders, we are going to get them their second test here as soon as possible. Yes.
But nobody else has exhibited any sort of symptoms, just the 2.
No, just the 2. So it's also important to note that our main body, which was the bulk of the packs, like 35, were all vaccinated with dose 1 prior to leaving, right? There was the advanced team that pushed out a few days earlier who the vaccine wasn't available for. So, you know, when it comes to the mitigations and trying to limit the exposure, that's something that did make a difference for us, and that we don't expect that main body who was vaccinated to have any symptoms because of their vaccination.
You know, I remember when you were on last time, I had asked you if any of the Guards members had COVID, right? Because at the time when they were there were all the stories about the National Guard that were sent to the inauguration starting to test positive for COVID. So, yeah, it's kind of sad that, you know, some of them are back and now we have 2 and we don't even know, you know, if anybody else.
Yep.
Yeah. So Mark, is the thought that they caught it on the plane or something? And do you know?
It's possible. So the contact tracing was underway immediately, and those results are, you know, with public health. But if they got the negative PCR within 72 hours, it must have been after that. Right. So like we said, even though we go by the book, it looks like the book could use some improvements, which is what we're doing here. We're doing that on our part.
Are you able to say at all if they had traveled into the island on the same flights as the families who tested positive for the virus in quarantine recently?
Well, that's a great question, Chris. That is really good. And now that's something that I want to know. So in fact, I got my Post-its here, and thank you for that. It may be very relevant.
So what flight then did they arrive?
They arrived in the late evening on Wednesday night from Hawaii. I don't have the flight number with me, Bree, but that was the time. So, yeah, that's a good question, for sure.
Late evening Wednesday. Okay. Like around what time was late? I haven't traveled. I don't know what time the flights come in from Hawaii.
Doesn't that flight normally come in at like around 8 or something like
7:30
that?
or something?
Yeah, it's like flight 801 from Honolulu or something.
Mark, are we...
They landed...
Go ahead.
So I was there when they came in. Of course, I'm there doing pictures, and I remember it being around 8:30 p.m. is when they landed, and that was a little bit early, if I recall.
Mark, are we sending off the sample to the CDC to get the genome mapping to find out if it's a variant strain of COVID?
Yeah. So from what I heard, we don't have the ability to test here if it is the variant strain or not. But as soon as they come in for that second round of tests, yes, I think it's important to share the information with our partners, for sure.
So is that a yes?
Yeah, when they get tested, did you ask, will we share that? Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Because I know that we just had Dr. Ho on, and he said that the test results from the 18 in quarantine are being sent off to the CDC so they could do the genome testing or whatever it's called to see if it's one of the variants.
That kind of happens a little bit after we send them to get tested. Okay. What they do with that tested is up to those guys. But yeah, if I have a recommendation, please send it up.
The two guards member that tested positive, what about their dependents, their family members? Is there any word on whether or not they may have tested positive, or whether they were tested? Or
yes, contact tracing. So it started right away. As soon as the one on Saturday was identified as positive, the contact tracing started there with close contact members. And from what we know now is that they were all put in isolation, segregated from their family, right? But the results of that contact tracing, I have yet to see. I don't know if any of them tested positive. I haven't heard, but they were part of the contact tracing process. Yes.
And they have they been hospitalized, or they're okay in isolation? What was that? I'm sorry. No. Did you say no?
No hospitalizations. Some mild symptoms from one of them, cough and sore throat, but they're at home, locked away.
All right. When I guess you guys do the additional testing of the 33 other guards members, please keep us posted.
Yeah.
Will do. Yeah, and thank you for that. Appreciate it. We're going to continue what we can do to try to protect the community and improve our processes as we go. Thank you guys for your continued support.
Thank you, Mark.
Take care, Mark.
All right.
Appreciate it. Be safe. Wash your hands, bro, twice.
Yeah. Are you going to have to get tested too, considering you were there at the airport when they arrived, or no?
Well, I've actually had my dose 1, and I will get tested, but I'm due for my dose 2 this weekend. So, yeah, it's not a bad idea for me to get tested again as well.
Well, good luck.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, you got it.
Take care.
And if I could, just to the families of the soldiers that did test positive, we want to say thank you for your sacrifice, because there's always risk in what we do as guardsmen and guardswomen. We wear this uniform and we take on risk. We fight wars. So every time someone steps like this to volunteer to serve and they make a sacrifice, even when it comes to getting infected, we have to make sure that we recognize that they kind of took one for the team, and we hope they get well, and please recover quickly. Thank you.
Mark, I know that you said that you are now considering getting tested because you were at the airport to greet them. But we do also understand that there was leadership, and I don't know if it was like the governor, lieutenant governor, senators, or Guard leadership. Are we now looking at the possibility that we may have to test a lot of people who met these Guard members at the airport?
No, so we weren't at the airport. They came into building 700 here at our compound, and we had this chair spread out at least 10 feet apart. There's no handshaking. There's no anyone came close to anyone at all, because we try to mitigate those risks as much as possible. So with a very distant welcome home brief that was probably at least 30 feet away from the troops, those measures were taken, Chris. We don't see any need. We don't see any reason why there was possible risk there.
Are any of these same Guards member, or are you going to find new ones? Because when we talked last time, you said there may be another mission for them to go back off island.
Oh, so there was an extension to the DC mission, and it came from all new people except for 5 who stayed, right?
Oh, 5.
So the new batch that went out got their dose 1 vaccination, and the 5 who are out there from before already got their vaccination as well. So there's no one that we sent out there for that extended mission who hasn't had their dose 1.
But there's no other missions to go back to DC. That's it.
After?
Okay.
No, not after what's already there. Right?
Okay.
That's right.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Thank you guys too. Have a good day. Stay safe.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
too. There you go. Mark Scott, Guard PIO. Let's just keep it going in the K-Wave News.